because broadcasting through Zoom has limited features. You can only
So
do
yeah,
YouTube, Facebook, or
like Twitch.
Twitch.
Yeah. So, well, see, here's the thing. I think there's other software that operates like Streamlabs. Um, but the main reason that we using Streamlabs is simply because we have a whole account with them, and so we do the one button thing, and
Launches everybody.
yeah, yep. And so the good thing is that on the desktop version, we can add in, special channels like, of course, naturally the rules of Nerdquisition, the YouTube channel, our Twitch. Well, no, we don't have Twitch. We do have a YouTube channel. And once we get to, hey, how you doing, Jay Thomas? So once we get to a point where we can like start live streaming on TikTok, if we get if we get to that before,
Before it's gone.
yeah. Otherwise, then I started working on our GCPR social media app. So that one's going to work a lot like TikTok. But I think I'm going to do like a limit on the video limit to like probably at most 5 minutes. But I will say that once that is done, I will be the algorithm.
The algorithm.
I will be the algorithm.
The algorithm.
It shall be me. Everything.
The algo IT nerd.
Absolutely. So let's see. Let's get everything set and ready. Da, 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 da. And we are streaming on the Radia. We're on live all over the YouTubes and the Twitches and everywhere in between. So I know they don't quite sound right, saying we're twitching everywhere in between. So
We're
it
twitching,
is.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And so for everybody that is joining us, yes, it is Sunday, 3 o'clock. Well, a little after 3. But it is.
It's okay.
But it is. It's cool. It's cool. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. You know what time it is. It's time for the rules of Nerdquisition. And we have a very special episode today. One that is near and dear to the prettiest lady on the internet, the Barbie Yaga. Oh yes, this is her baby daddy.
This is going to be a love-hate letter, the one we've all been waiting for.
Yes,
The love letter to Darth Vader.
the much anticipated.
But also a critical review of the entire Skywalker saga.
Of course.
With a few honorable mentions to some other Star Wars properties. But we're going to step away from Star Trek today. We're going to talk about Star Wars for the entirety of this show. I did the research, so you don't have to. I watched a lot of videos. I mean, one of them I watched was called A Very Brief Analysis of the Phantom Menace. It's 12 hours long.
Jesus Christ. And she did that for you. She did it for you. For you. Our loyal and lovely listeners.
Yes. And I do want to just point out also that I got some great ideas and tidbits from the Cosmonaut Variety Hour on YouTube. Just want to give the Cosmonaut a shout out. very, very introspective, very, very smart in regard to um, his reviews of these movies, especially the sequel trilogy, which of all 9 movies are going to be the 3 that I trash most today. So if you are a fan of the sequel trilogy, I'm not going to make you a happy person today. I'm not going to make you a happy person today. And I'm going to
Sorry.
start this out. I'm going to start this out by saying my biggest
Hmm.
problem
Hmm.
with the sequel trilogy, especially in regard to the Rise of Skywalker and the, oh, hey, last minute, let's bring Palpatine back, um, is the
Yeah.
utter disregard and um, of Vader's sacrifice at the end of Return of the Jedi. It basically made that entire event irrelevant.
Yeah. I totally agree. Because what was the whole point of Vader's sacrifice?
Only to have Palpatine come back again.
Yeah. Like, what was the point of that?
It
And then
makes no sense to me.
and they had a perfectly great antagonist that they set up in Snoke. Perfectly.
We learned absolutely nothing about except the side mention, oh, I made Snoke.
Right?
He's just a clone.
Okay. Okay.
I love Palpatine. He is a deliciously evil character. And he did just fine as Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker. But why?
Yes.
Why was it necessary?
I wish I had an answer. I wish I had an answer because, again, like I said, they had everything perfectly set up for Snoke. To explore, who is Snoke? Why all of a sudden is who's this mysterious figure that is now the head of, that is taken over for Palpatine? Was he a secret, Palpatine, disciple? Was he trained by Vader? Was he, was he like, Grievous? That may have been a clone of Grievous or somehow, there was so many possibilities that they could have explored with Snoke, or even just saying that, hey, he was Darth Plagueis that just happened to hop from body to body and then ended up as being Snoke and then decided to call himself Snoke and then big reveal. He's Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you consider the backstory of Plagueis, that what very little we got, and that one very brief cameo in The Acolyte. Thank you again for all of you racists and white suffragists out there that can't stand the fact that a beloved franchise might include anybody who's not a cis white man. We came that close to maybe getting Plagueis on screen.
So yes,
In a season 2.
But because the one white guy that was in it was not front and center, leading the charge, yeah, it's not good. I mean, it's not good. It's not this. It is this. It is that. And it's all kinds of just criticisms.
I was absolutely shocked in the most excellent way when Jedi Master Trinity was killed in like the first 3 minutes of the show.
Right.
That was the most brilliant thing they could do, despite my shock at first. Like, you hired Carrie Ann Moss to be in this show, and you just offed her.
Right? Like I'm thinking, okay, here we got
flashbacks. It's like, oh, this makes sense.
Okay, I said, oh, all right, now I see why she got, murked in the first 5 minutes. Okay. And then it's just like, well, alrighty then. And then, because again, the one white guy that was in it was not front and center, then it's a problem. Oh, it's just not that. It doesn't right. It's not this. It doesn't feel like this. And it's all in it. It's so many just great just shows and movies that are just absolutely phenomenal and would branch off into just whole franchises instantly killed because the white guy is not front and center.
Right. And that's what leads me into this love letter to Darth Vader, because we just come off of an election where Emperor Trump has been reelected, and Darth Musk is there with him. And
right.
I just want to point out that the difference between Trump and Musk and Vader, and why Trump and Musk are more evil than Darth Vader, despite Vader being one of the most prolific mass murderers in all of science fiction, is that Darth Vader could be redeemed. And I don't believe that Musk or Trump can be.
No, they like... No, Trump's trying to stay out of jail and Musk is trying to become the first trillionaire. So they're on two different pages.
They may not have as high of a body count unless you're talking about underage girls in a pageant dressing room, but you know.
That is true. You know, or
you know one thing Darth Vader never did? He never raped anybody.
Facts. That is fact. As many of the evil shit and ill shit that he did, he never did that. So,
and then there's some great points that I want to make about Vader as we get through this show. But the one thing I think that's really kind of shocked me as I was watching some of these other videos and these analysis breakdowns of the various movies in the Skywalker saga. And I think it's safe to say when it comes to the Skywalker saga, we don't really need to address the original trilogy. Everybody knows it. We all love it. Mm-hmm. We know what's good and bad about it. That's not really anything that we don't need to break that down critically. But when, despite the fact that the prequels have their moments, it's got some bad dialogue, there's some rough acting, the direction wasn't that great, especially when you see people like Sam Jackson, who's a fantastic actor,
right,
not being as good on screen as I'm used to him seeing.
Yeah. I mean,
because of the direction of the movie, George directing the movie. And I love you, George. Don't get me wrong. I love you. I absolutely do. But the plot of the sequel, of the prequel trilogy, is actually better than the sequels. It may not have been executed in the right way.
Yeah.
But it's a better plot all around.
And I kind of think that so I saw an interview with Sam Witwer, Freddie Prinze Jr., where he was talking about how people's love and hate for the sequel trilogy and for the prequel and for the original, and all the kind of older folks like myself and older. They were like, "Oh, we don't like the sequel, blah 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 blah," and it's just like, and his breakdown is like, "Look, you're just mad because this is not geared for you. This is geared for a whole different audience."
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, when you first watch it, it was geared towards you, so that's why you love it. When the prequels came out, it was geared towards a whole different audience. And so now these are geared towards a whole completely separate audience. And so that's why you're really mad, is because the property hasn't grown up with you. It's tailored to a different audience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And my family is a good example of that. The original trilogy was my trilogy. It was geared towards me. When I went and saw the prequels, my oldest daughter was 7 years old, 7 years old. Not much older than I was when I first saw Star Wars. That's what she
Right.
remembers. That's
Yeah.
her Star Wars. Yes, she likes the original trilogy, but she's like, this one was mine. And
Mm-hmm.
then my middle child, who's 10 years younger than my oldest, they were about the same age when I took them to see the sequels. And that
Yeah.
became their trilogy. My problem with the sequels, though, is that
Oh.
aside from
Oh.
giving
Hey.
them
Here you
some,
go. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we cut you off real quick. James here says, looks like congratulations to James and his spouse. They entered a cookie bake-off and they placed first for non-decorated, and they'll be selling cookies, selling a cookie at the bakery. Oh, awesome! Congratulations, man! Congratulations to you
oh,
and your
wow,
wife.
what's
Uh,
that comment on?
on YouTube.
On YouTube? Why am I not? I'm not seeing comments on YouTube. I'm on YouTube. Hmm. I see
So
no comments on YouTube.
yeah, on the GCPR YouTube.
I'm on the rules
Yeah.
of Nerdquisition. That's why.
Oh,
Ha ha
see,
ha. See,
see,
let
see.
let's do a little switcheroo there.
I'm watching all of them.
Right, right.
So
Okay. Yes, I see it now. I'm pulling in. So you'll see my one comment into the rules of Nerdquisition where there's nobody there.
uh,
Yes, but congratulations, James. That's fantastic. Now I see your comments. I'm in the Ghost Claw chat now. So hello and welcome. Happy to have you here. But as I was saying, I will give Ryan Johnson one very small accolade, and that is he tried to do
mm,
something different with Return of the or Last Jedi.
yeah.
It was
Mm,
not generally well loved. At least you know how Star Wars fans are. We're very polarizing. Either you loved it or you hated it.
true. True.
I'm actually in the middle. There are parts about that movie that I enjoy. What I don't like is that 40 minutes of the space casino, where they basically turned Finn's character into a running gag in that whole movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
From
That
waking
was.
up in the leaking water suit to just being comic relief for the entire
Mm,
movie. Like, he was a good character in The Force Awakens. You could build on that. He had
yeah.
connection with Poe. So much connection, as Cosmonaut pointed out, everybody wanted to ship them as gay.
Yeah.
Everybody
And
wanted to ship them as gay.
and here's the thing though, and the way they had originally kind of set Poe up, I was thinking is that he was going to be, he was going to start Jedi training.
Right.
That's
Or
because that's the way that they kind of had presented, Finn as a character. That he was a stormtrooper, and all of a sudden he just broke away from it. And it's like you've never seen any kind of shit like that ever. You're a stormtrooper, you're a stormtrooper, you're a stormtrooper. That's it.
they were the comic relief in a sense.
Yeah,
Can't hit anything. They're just faceless soldiers.
right. And it's like a battle droids, but just in flesh. And
Right.
the simple fact is that here's this one that kind of was just like, yo, this is not right. And it just kind of almost seems like it set him to a path. It's like, yo, again, like the Force Awakens, the Force has awakened him.
Right.
And so it just seemed to me as it kind of dropped the ball with him to kind of set him on the path of Jedi training. Yeah,
Right. I
because
sort of expected multiple characters to kind of awaken into the Force.
yeah,
Finn, Poe, Rey. I thought they were all gonna like this was like the new build-up because
the new Jedi Order.
even with Luke training a new Jedi Order, they were still mostly wiped out post Return of the
Mhm.
Jedi.
Yeah.
And you've got one man out here tasked with rebuilding an entire religious sect
Mm-hmm.
that, he can only do so much. He's
Right.
one guy.
Yeah. And so, I mean, and it just seemed to set up those characters to be, to train under Luke and to start the Jedi Order again and to kind of build off of that and rebuild the Order back up. That it just seemed like it just kind of set it up that way. And I think that's my main problem with it, is that it just seemed like with changing directors with J.J. Abrams to Ryan Johnson and then back to Abrams in the last one.
Yeah.
It kind of messed with that story.
Because they came in to retcon just about every change that Ryan Johnson did in the Last Jedi.
Yeah, so
the universal backlash of what happened. I mean, I know that he eventually backtracked because he is an employee at the end of the day, but I mean, there's something very telling about Mark Hamill's response to Luke's character arc.
Yeah.
Before he changed his tune and kind of, had to play nice because he's under contract. I get that. He can't go, but I mean, that was the most unrealistic path that Luke could have gone.
Yeah. And again, just like how you said, Mark Hamill, he voices his, disappointment of how on that exact same thing, is that this is not how Luke would have been. This is not Luke at all.
No. It's one thing for a tragic event to happen and our hero to go through a struggle and a moment of doubt and even just kind of separate from everything for a minute. But I mean, it would have taken him all of a couple of days to be like, okay, this sucks. This is bad. But
right.
I'm Luke freaking Skywalker.
So
I got to get out there and do something.
Yeah. And it's like, it just seems like because he was trained to be in those arts like that, something tragic that happened. He would have had the training to know how to basically to deal with that. To understand is that yes, it is tragic, but in the end, they are one with the Force, and eventually we all are going to become one with the Force. So while yes, it is tragic and their end may have come prematurely, they're now one with the Force, and so they're good.
And let's talk about how dirty they did Mark Hamill. Did you know? I just found this out. I did not realize this. Mark Hamill did not know that Luke Skywalker died in in The Last Jedi until the movie came out.
Wow, that is dirty.
He was not. He filmed it thinking he just collapsed in exhaustion. Not that his character died.
Now, it would have made sense that he collapsed in exhaustion because...
Yes, that was an incredible feat that he did.
Incredible feat and using the Force, and it was like,
projecting himself halfway across the galaxy.
Right? So it's going to take... It's going to take some conditioning on his part. It's not like, he just hopped in a shuttle because he just had one just laying around,
Right, exactly. It was just absolutely amazing that they did that to him. And
man, that's dirty. I didn't even know that.
To cut himself off willingly from his sister and his best friend, whom they went through a war with, and this is something that I think it was the cosmonaut who brought it up in his video that I watched, and the sentiment's been mirrored in other videos I've seen too. The sequel trilogy did not feel like a war.
No.
There were lots of battle scenes in all of the other movies, in the prequels, and the original trilogy, but like everything that they talk about in the sequels, it all happens off screen. You just hear about it later. You don't see anything happen. There's a few little skirmishes here and there, But I mean, there's no war. Think of the movie. You've seen Solo, correct?
Yes. Hmm.
Remember when he joins the military?
Yeah.
He joins the Empire,
Yeah.
and then the next scene is him in the middle of this. Like, there was more war in that 10
And that little,
second
and yeah,
scene
and I
than.
that sequence, then the sequel trilogy, because yeah, I mean, there technically was, and you would see, you know, Poe and Finn get prepped and launch a shuttle and whatnot, but it almost is like the soon as the battle was to start, then it would flip to Rey and something going on a completely different planet. Instead of just okay, well, this is gonna be a cool battle. We're gonna watch, all these TIE fighters. We're gonna watch, these Jet starfighters. We're gonna watch all this. Nope. I'm going back to Rey over in Tatooine Light.
Yes. And there's all this talk that there is a very divisive conversation or debate to be had about Rey's power level and whether or not she's a
Hmm.
quote unquote Mary Sue. That's been talked about a lot, but one of the analysis that I was watching that made a lot of sense is that look at the progression between Rey and Luke.
Hmm.
Luke had bona fide training, even if it
Yeah.
was only for a short period, under a one of the
Mm.
most powerful Jedi masters of all time.
Correct.
And he rushed off to fight Vader and got his ass kicked.
Hmm.
He got one lucky shot in that whole fight, but Vader
Yep.
owned him that entire fight on Cloud City. The entire freaking
Yes.
fight.
Yes.
Rey never suffered any serious defeats. She never struggled. Yeah, she might
Hmm.
have
I mean, yeah,
struggled
she
for a
got
minute
a. I mean, she got
with those.
into a fight with Kylo, but you know, they always ended in. They never really ended it in a decisive win or loss. It just ended in like, "Hey, why are you doing this?" Well, because. Well, what do you mean because? And it was just kind of trail off into them dialoguing. Couple
And that's
lightsaber
not
strikes and then dialogue. Lightsaber strikes, dialogue, and then it was just trail off into dialogue.
yeah, she struggled for a minute in what I think was a very cool scene in the throne room scene in Last Jedi when her and
Hmm.
Kylo are fighting the Snoke's
Oh,
guard or whatever they're called.
Royal Guard things.
Whichever that right. And that was a really cool fight and stuff like that. But she didn't struggle for long
True.
in that fight. She still overcame all of them. And and I don't know. But again, I'm not here to complain about Ray or anything like that. Again, that's a whole nother debate that could go on for hours and hours and hours. But in regard to the sequel trilogy, it's just a rehash. It's so repetitive.
Yeah.
The Empire, the First Order, whoever they are, they create a planet destroying machine. It blows up planets. The Empire's defeated. Then the First Order rises out of the Empire and they create multi planet destroying machines. And
Hmm.
then all the way to the end of the movie, where regardless of resources, engineering, feats of, immaculate engineering, Palpatine raises this army or this armada of planet destroying star destroyers
Right.
out of the mist. Who built those? Who built those?
Good question. I the Force. I mean,
It took over 20 years for them to build the singular Death Star, which in itself would have been a feat of monumental engineering.
and it was, and then of course, and the second one they did not even finish,
It didn't
but
even finish it.
they were
It was
still
half
able.
complete.
It was
They
half
at least
complete,
got the
but
gun.
yeah,
They got the gun working. That's like
it said that's all we need.
just
So
need the gun.
said we just need the gun working. That's all we need. We get the we can finish the rest on the way.
The superstructure comes later. Yes, we don't need to worry about that. But there was nothing new. And again, I'm gonna give Ryan Johnson his props for trying something new. You just didn't do it very well, to the point where
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams had to come in and retcon the entire movie, change everything, start off with the stupidest crawl in the world, the dead speak. No
So
exposition,
really,
no nothing, no backstory, just Palpatine's back. And again, just to throw more accolades towards the cosmonaut, I love the way he says, like, he talks about this. He's like, literally the first line of the movie is Poe going, somehow Palpatine returned. Like the worst line in all the movies. Like I cringe more when I
oh
hear
my
that
god.
line than when I hear that dialogue between Anakin and Padme, from Revenge of the Sith, when he's like, "You're so beautiful," and she's like, "It's because I'm so in love," and he's like, "No, because I'm so in love with you." Like, oh,
It's
jeez.
like, oh my god, really? This,
Oh, ow,
like, uh.
ow.
It's like,
Ow.
uh.
But Anakin had a bona fide character arc through the entire prequel trilogy. The
Yes.
Emperor had a plan that was shown to us on screen, that developed over all three movies. It wasn't just a 10-minute, in the last 10 minutes of Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine jumps out of nowhere and goes, ha ha ha, it was me all along. You got to
Mm.
watch him do
Yeah.
this,
Yes.
and it showed how it took him years to
Hmm.
take over. I mean, I like how the Thrawn storyline in the Ahsoka series so much better, in regard to, that being the remnant of the Empire and leading into the First Order, than I do just the First Order just showing up at the beginning of the
Of
Force Awakens.
yeah.
Just, hi, we're
And
here.
it's like first order. Okay, where the hell did first order come from? What happened to the empire? What it is?
Right.
I mean, did it become the empire? Is this like the rebel the rebel uprising of the empire that became the first order, and then got corrupted, or how what the hell's going on? And it's just, and if you didn't because there was a clip, I want to say it was in a Fortnite, of Palpatine talking about how the first order came about or some shit like that.
Yeah, it was his message that was supposedly
Yeah.
broadcast across the entire galaxy announcing his return, which again totally nullifies and ruins Vader's sacrifice.
Yes.
I mean, he was thrown down a bottomless pit and vaporized,
Mm-hmm.
and yet he still somehow came back. And you didn't have to
And
do that. You could have done something with Snoke. You could have
yes.
done something with Snoke. You could have done
So you
something with him.
could have done literally anything with Snoke. Anything
You
with
had
Snoke.
you had the wondrous voice talents of Andy Serkis behind that character, and
Mm-hmm.
you wasted it. You wasted it. It was wasted.
Yeah. I mean, even you could just say Snoke was actually, Jar Jar Binks, that he was a Sith Lord, that for whatever reason he was a Sith Lord that was trying to, take out Palpatine, because, he wanted to be Darth Plagueis' apprentice.
That's some dedication, to any Sith Lord who would present themselves publicly in such a fashion
Right? So I mean,
to be universally hated. But I
yeah.
have heard that
But,
theory before, and it's not an invalid one. It's not
and
an invalid one.
and see, and because Gambit and I kind of had a thing about, we were talking about that, and saying is that, the debate on Jar Jar Binks being the Sith Lord that was behind everything, and based with how he was communicating with the me seduced at house and all that shit like that. And so I'm thinking is that because he's connected with the Force, he can speak normally, but he chooses to speak like that because that's how Gungans speak. But that's
right, and it
Darth.
it does draw attention away from himself too.
Yeah. And so how else would you hide if you are Darth Plagueis and you're this incarnation, you're a Gungan. You're gonna talk like a Gungan.
All very good theories. And James in the comments brings up, the Yuuzhan Vong, that was an interesting storyline. I mean, I know that's considered Star Wars Legends now, so it's not canon.
Yeah.
I believe, weren't they the reptilian race that was invading the galaxy from outside the Star Wars galaxy?
Yeah.
I know that the Emperor was aware of them at the time and was trying to prepare for their arrival and their fight. But I mean, the Timothy Zahn books, Heir to the Empire series, was a far better fitting sequel trilogy, in my opinion, than the sequel trilogies were. And again, you did this in this love letter to Darth Vader. You've taken one of the top villains in movies, consistently in the top 3 of villains in all movies.
Yeah.
And you've
just basically just said,
How can we poop on this legacy entirely and just make it stink to all high heaven?
Yeah, and the thing about it, what is so inconsistent is that in all of the shows that are set within the time of the prequel series, of the prequel movies, like Obi-Wan, well, it's set kind of in between the prequel and the original series, but shows like that, they've said that they've destroyed all of the cloning facilities, so there's no way that they could make a clone anymore. And that was during it. So how in the absolute blue hell did Palpatine was able to somehow make a clone of himself to be the big bad guy that was, using Snoke as a puppet? How? Same way he was able to make those planet destroying star destroyers. How?
Oh, how did you do that, sir? How did you do that? Really?
How?
Inquiring minds want to know.
Like how?
You just shoot some lightning up into the sky and they just rise up out of the mist. Like, wow, that's incredible force ability you got right there. Not to mention, how many people do you need to crew all of those ships?
Exactly. I mean, just the only way I can see it is that you'd have to go all over the galaxy and look for all 7 Dragon Balls, and make 3 or 4 wishes.
I know. I mean, every time I'm watching the sequel trilogy, it's like every 12 minutes I want to be screaming, "What in the MacGuffin is this?"
Yes.
What in the MacGuffin is going on? I mean, it's just, let's get this item and that item and chase this and chase that, and it's like, who wrote this story for you? I mean, 12-year-olds?
And
I take that back. I know some 12-year-olds that are far more clever.
And I would say that this was pretty much my whole look throughout all 3 movies was just absolute confusion, because there's so much stuff that was just inconsistent.
It feels haphazard.
Yeah, and a lot of times it just seems like the story was just kind of it was just hastily written. It was no kind of really just kind of thought put into it, so to speak. I mean, it was just kind of like, okay, well, let's just make a big fight, and then we'll just leave it open at the end.
Sadly, I think what happened is that Rise of Skywalker became, it was too much about fan service. And I don't like to necessarily dish on or drag on fan service, because there are things as fans we want to see.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
there was too much of it. Too much of it. I mean,
agreed.
there's just
I,
there was not enough exposition. Everything happened off screen. Just everything was just kind of skipped from this scene to that scene. Repeat storylines of the past. I mean, Force
mm-hmm.
Awakens, which was the best of the three in my opinion, is still just a remake
Of the
the
original
original
Star
Star Wars.
Wars, yeah, yeah. And I said that the very first time that when I saw it, I called up a friend of mine. And I said, "Hey, this is basically just a new hope, except just
It's a new home.
it's just a new hope, except just instead of a guy that's in Lolita, it's a girl. That's it. Same, it's exact same story.
Exact same story. It is the exact same story. But but then we get back to, just doing this kind of Darth Vader love letter thing, and like I said, in the prequel trilogy, he had a bona fide arc. Again,
Yes,
we can talk about the dialogue, we can talk about some of the acting scenes and stuff like that, but we had a bona fide point A to point B.
it's a
This is what you get.
character arc from him just going from being a slave to then kind of discovering that he is very strong, like stronger than the people that has found him, and once being trained and realizing that, hey, I can do a whole lot, and then succumbing to fear, and then that fear turning into hate, and then he's full on Sith, and then going from the Sith, and then say, hey, this is not right. This is my son, and then finally coming back to that light and creating a whole character arc, in which I told a friend of mine. Well, we used to be friends, but that's a whole other story. And I was like, hey, look, the whole Anakin being the chosen one, and he was, and he did. That he was supposed to bring balance to the Force, and it's like, how else are you supposed to bring balance to the Force if you're not on the light and on the dark? So he did both. I mean, he saved a lot of lives when he was on the light, and he took a whole lot more when he was on the dark.
And he probably saved even more so when he came back by ending the Empire.
Yeah.
Because
So,
had they, let's, hypothetically say they finished Death Star 2, which is already much larger and much more powerful than the original one.
correct.
Had it gone fully operational, arguably likely without the flaw that the first one had, which I love the way they write the flaw into that in the movie Rogue One.
Yes. So,
That
and
it wasn't just an accident, like it's sabotage.
so, no, he's like,
Sabotage.
yes. And for anybody that's not seen it, Rogue One sets up as like that little small exhaust port was meant to be there. It was meant to be a. It was meant to be a way.
Exploited.
Yeah, it was meant to be exploited like that, but only a certain kind of pilot would be able to kind of pull it off, and that's the only way he could sneak it in there. That was it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it even comes back to the trench run on the original Death Star. A lot of people say, "Well, how can you call Rey a Mary Sue when Luke did some of the same things?" But again, he didn't. Not only did he get his ass kicked by his dad in that fight after being trained by a Jedi Master, he had help. He would not have pulled off the destruction of the Death Star without help. He had Obi-Wan in his ear, and he had Han Solo show up at the last minute to save his butt because
Yes,
Vader was about to take him out.
Yeah, because that last split second, just right when he had a target, and before he pushed that button, boom, here comes Han.
Here comes Han. And it's only because Vader was distracted by Luke
Mm-hmm.
and this person that he did not know yet.
So didn't know really that Luke
just
actually was his son, and just knowing that, hey, whoever this guy is really strong with the Force.
right.
So
Makes that distinction, that realization during that fight. He's distracted by that.
yeah,
So of course he does, in his own hubris, he doesn't.
because he doesn't think that he'd never think that there's nobody as strong as him in the Force as him, if there's anybody left other than the Emperor. So
Right.
there's nobody else that's stronger than him.
This is long after the Purge has mostly come to a completion.
Yes.
I'm assuming that Vader did believe before he killed Obi-Wan on the Death Star that he was out there somewhere, as was indicated in the show Obi-Wan. They
Yes.
had a conflict there, and Obi-Wan came out on top, but he knew that he was out there somewhere, and you had to know that if Jedi are spread out across the entire galaxy, there are
Mhm.
others that got away. We've seen plenty of stories. Cal Kestis,
Right.
from Fallen Order. We've seen plenty. I don't know if you've seen it. I just watched the first 2 episodes of Skeleton Crew.
I haven't seen it yet. That's definitely on my list to watch. I was actually going to watch this. I was going to try and watch it before we got on air, but I'll just have to watch it now after.
The episodes are only about 30 minutes a piece, and it started out in a way that I thought, what are they doing? I'm not really sure. But once the show gets going, I was like, this is interesting. It kind of, in a way, not in the same path that the kids took, but it took me back to the movie Explorers. It's one of my favorite childhood movies when it comes to like children's science fiction. Do you remember the movie Explorers? River Phoenix, Ethan Hawke, they build this spaceship in the little creek bed and then fly off to meet the aliens and stuff like that. That was one of my favorite movies as a kid. Since the movie focuses on a group of children, it brings back some of that wonder that I had as a kid. I'm interested to see where the show goes. I'm not going to spoil it for you. You should watch it. And I don't know where it's going to go. It could get better, it could get worse. I don't know. But right now I'm intrigued. I'll give it that. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, because I'm gonna check it out. I'm gonna check it out as I'm still
first 10, 20 minutes you're gonna be like, this isn't Star Wars. What's going on here? And then suddenly it is. And it's like, hey.
It's like, okay, all right, yeah.
Okay. I see what you did there. I like it. It's okay.
Yeah. I'm still highly disappointed about The Acolyte being canceled, because that was such a great show. And
yes,
but again, this is our love hate letter to Vader.
Love letter to Vader, but love hate letter to the sequel trilogy of the Skywalker saga.
But yeah, and again, his whole character arc. I mean, not only just from the prequel, just all the way up. It just starts him out and just thinking is that here's this kid, this slave kid, but just happens to be, weirdly strong in the Force. And of course, naturally, it grabbed Qui-Gon's attention.
Props to Liam Neeson for being one of the few actors that starred in The Phantom Menace that actually managed to portray a good character and not be restricted by George Lucas's directing style. He did what Sam Jackson couldn't do.
So yeah,
Liam Neeson, Qui-Gon Jinn's one of my favorite characters from the prequel trilogy because he played it so well.
Oh yeah, I love Qui-Gon Jinn. And the the fight between him Obi-Wan and Maul, one of my absolute favorite fight scenes in all of Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. We are a Star Trek show. Sometimes we slip up.
But I would say my favorite, my absolute favorite one is the Vader Obi-Wan. Vader Obi-Wan on Revenge of the Sith, which either that or the one on that or on Obi-Wan, because that one was a really great one too.
Was a really great one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going old school in this one. Favorite Vader fight: Luke and Vader, Cloud City on Bespin. That's just
yeah.
The thing about okay, so look, I can gush about Vader for a minute. The thing that I love about both that fight scene,
Mm-hmm.
even Vader's portrayal in the original trilogy, but also what they did in Rogue One, and we've talked about this before with the hallway scene, and not just
Mm-hmm.
that, even his conversation with director Krennic. Those particular scenes made Vader terrifying.
Yes.
He should be terrifying. Just like when he walks up to that Inquisitor at the end of Fallen Order, and you just hear
Mm-hmm.
this breathing, and he walks out of the mist and drops down behind her, and he cuts her down, and it's just like,
Yeah.
whew.
And
And
same things.
it seems like,
I was about to say, and the same with in the original one when he killed the one he killed the one captain because he gave him bad news. Said a little bit.
right. And you know what's so cool about that? A lot of that is that too, he, yes, Vader's an angry person, and you'd see him as he
Mm-hmm.
progresses through the prequel trilogy, getting angrier and angrier on his path to becoming Darth Vader. And just for the
Yes.
record, I'm not one of those people that believes that Vader and Anakin are two different people. They are the same person. Um, I know there's some
There's
disparity when
always
it comes to
yeah.
that idea, but I think that by doing that nullifies the tragic path that Anakin took to becoming Darth Vader by simply saying, "Oh, what he was possessed by some dark side
Yeah.
thing that made him Vader." No, I don't believe that. That's a cheap way of taking away from the horrible things that he did, which we don't want to celebrate, but to say that that's what he had to do to become who he was.
Yeah.
Um, Knowing that Order 66 and the things that he did, killing children, killing his
Mm-hmm.
best friend and mentor, and all these other things. I mean, chopping off Mace Windu's hand and blast, and so that Emperor could blast him out the window.
Yeah.
These were all very important things that needed to happen on that pathway. But you see him getting angrier and angrier through the prequels. But then when you see him 20 years later in the original trilogy, that anger is still there, but it's not as
Mm-hmm.
aggressive. A lot of it is mostly just irritation from the staff meeting where he's like,
Mm-hmm.
I find your lack of faith disturbing, and choking coworkers at staff meetings.
Yeah.
Um, or
And
to Empire when he's just casually killing off commanders who
yeah.
fail him.
Yes. And so yeah, and again, just exactly like that. So yeah, it's still there. That anger is still there, but it's more kind of controlled now. He's able to control that anger, and again, just
Almost see a touch of it.
Yeah.
Almost see a touch of it in Empire Strikes Back when the one dude's talking to him. I think it's Admiral Piet, and he's like, well, they're in the asteroid field. We don't want to. And Vader kind of almost irritated. He's like, asteroids do not concern me. Almost sounds like he's going to get mad.
Yeah.
But he is stressing in his voice, like,
It's astronauts do not concern me. And it's like
all the way to the point when the Millennium Falcon jumps to hyperspace at the end of the movie, and instead of even saying a damn word, he just walks out of the room. And it's like that sent shivers down my spine. Like,
So no, because
dude shit terrified me.
Right? Because at that point, we're used to him, hey, just casually choking somebody out, casually breaking their neck, just random nonstop. He said, said Lord Vader, I have bad news, and it's done. For the simple fact is that he looked and he saw, and there was nothing he could do, and he turned around and walked off, and nobody died. Oh,
and you see the look on Admiral Piet's face, and all the guys down in the little the cubbies, whatever those little recessed areas are, watching him walk away, and they're all just kind of like.
So yeah, of course they're gonna keep their eye on him because they don't. They know. They're trying not to say anything. They're trying not because they know. They know. And here's the thing: is that it's the simple fact is that we know is that he doesn't do anything right then because the person's not right there that he could do that too. When he finds them and he catches them, it's going to be even worse. Mm-hmm. Because you can tell he's exactly that type. He said, if I have to chase you, it's going to be worse.
Yeah, exactly. That's yeah. It's the equivalent of a father spanking a child and finding out that the child has a book shoved down the back of their pants.
Right?
Like you did not.
Said you didn't just do that.
But a couple of side notes on comments on in our YouTube chat over on the Rules and Nerdquisition channel. Actually, first let's reset the show. It is 4 p.m. You're watching the Rules of Nerdquisition on listening on GCPR.live, also broadcasting on the Rules of Nerdquisition YouTube, on Ghost Claw Entertainment on YouTube, on Twitch, and are we on Facebook?
No, we are not on Facebook. We're
that's okay.
We're everywhere else though. Like a virus.
Like a virus, yeah. We spread. You've caught it. There's no cure. Sorry, people. So, but George, our very very good friend George. A couple of things I want to point out. Yes, Force Awakens was a new hope.
Was a new hope. Yes, it was.
The rest of the movie were total shite. Just a collection of visually exciting scenes with no story. Exactly. Did everyone?
Yes.
Everyone get goosebumps when every ship in the galaxy showed up at the end of Rise of Skywalker for the big battle? Yes, it looked cool. Was it suddenly murdered for all to see when the horses jumped out of the ships and were running free on the backs of ships in space? Yes. Also, yes. What is happening here?
So, do we know? We have no idea.
Skeleton Crew is a kid's show. It's Goonies in Outer Space.
Goonies
I think it has the potential. To grow. Has the potential to grow, and I do have hope in it. But again, we'll see. We're only 2 episodes in, and there's not enough to really tell. Midichlorians. Let's talk about
Midichlorians. All right, so I'm gonna say it like this. All right, so until I first heard about in the Phantom Menace of midichlorian count, I didn't think the Force worked like that, where it's like scientifically. No. I thought it was more of a sort of like a spiritual kind of thing that you were born with. But right. You had that gift.
It should almost be faith based as well.
Yes. It's
not that I'm a big fan of religion, but
I mean the way that it's structured is, it's part of a gift that you have. 2 is part of a sort of a religion, but it's sort of like that. It's kind of structured that way, sort of, but
no, there's two things you could say about this, two ways you could go. First of all, midi-chlorians never really needed to be brought up because I think that was Star Wars' attempt to do some of Trek's technobabble. You don't need to
Mm-hmm.
scientifically explain or try to explain everything.
Right.
I understand in a video game we could say, well, do wizards have midi-chlorians or some equivalent to it in Dungeons and Dragons or fantasy shows or Skyrim, anything like that? No,
Mhm.
but they do have usually mana meters, but
Yeah.
that's just for video game purposes. So, because even
Yeah.
in Dungeons and
Yeah.
Dragons, a wizard has to memorize his spells, and then when he casts them, he has to go back and relearn them before he can
Mm-hmm.
use them again. Um, I would have more preferred it if I were to retcon it, and I know it's easy to be an armchair writer in these cases. I would have more preferred that maybe midi-chlorians or there was some kind of residue that could be measured in a person's body from their using the force, not
Mm-hmm.
causing or giving them access to it,
Right.
but something in their body that would give you a hint that they had force
You know.
ability.
Yeah.
It did
Like
not have to be determined on like I have 40,000 midichlorians, I'm the most powerful.
right. And then it almost seems like it makes the whole midichlorian thing irrelevant in one episode of the Clone Wars, which is I forget the names of it, but they were like the Guardian Force, like Guardians or whatever, like the father, sister, and the brother, in which each one represents one aspect of the Force. And it seems like the Force is not a whole scientific thing where it's more like it chooses you to okay, we'll make this random person a Force user. We'll make this random person a Force user. And then you have some ones that, like Palpatine, that say, you know what? I'm going to use my access to the Force to make this person, use the Force to make another person. I'm going to use the Force to make another person. And
There's a question
something like
I
that.
have for you then. Give me your thoughts on this then. According to canon, or at least what I've read and been able to find, Darth Plagueis is the only character, only Sith Lord that was ever able to influence the midichlorians to create life.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe it's stated that Palpatine never quite learned that ability. He even says so in Revenge of
Yeah.
the Sith.
Yeah.
So do you think that Anakin was actually created by Plagueis before Palpatine killed him?
Oh yeah. Yeah, because simply because of that is that what Palpatine, even when he was telling the story of Darth Plagueis, he even said is that Darth Plagueis could do that. He never said that he could do that, and he was his apprentice. But
Right? And he tells Anakin at one point, he's like, together we can discover this secret.
yeah,
We work together.
yeah. So even if he kind of he knows sort of how to do it, but just like anything, he needs to practice on it. He needs to do this, but he would be able to have enough power in the Force, being able to with Anakin, because of how strong with the Force Anakin was, and he could be able to do that. But Plagueis was just that he was on a whole other level to where he knew how to manipulate the midichlorians to create life.
And this is why I wanted this season 2 of Acolyte.
Mm-hmm. Because I full on believe that Plagueis created Anakin, and to use him, what more powerful body than would be one created purely from the Force.
Right. And then Palpatine's like, all right, well, he created this person. I'm going to keep an eye on them, get rid of Plagueis, and then it'll be my apprentice someday.
Yeah. And I think that Palpatine's whole original plan was to, of course, let Anakin go through Jedi training, get him fully trained up, how to use the Force and whatnot. Get his body in pretty much peak condition physically, connected with the Force and whatnot, and go to discover the secrets of, Darth Plagueis and how he was able to manipulate midichlorians, to be able to escape death and everything like that, and do the plan that Plagueis had. When he died, he was going to take over Anakin's body. Because again, what more powerful body that you would have that would be one that was made purely from the Force?
Right. And if you're getting back into the, whether you subscribe to the midichlorian thing or not, they say like the average human has around 2,500, non-force sensitive people about 2,500. Your average force sensitive person is anywhere from 4,000 to 5,000. Jedi's in the 10 to 15 range. Yoda had 17,000, and Anakin had the highest count at 20,000 plus. Although there was some Legends material at one point that indicated that Palpatine did have a higher midichlorian count because he used a kyber crystal to enhance his own. I don't know how much you want to buy into that. I still don't think midichlorians should have been a thing. They should not have been symbiotic creatures that help us talk to the Force. That's just stupid.
No, yeah, it's the dumbest thing to me, quite honestly. It came across as like, why are you trying to explain something scientifically that has always been presented as something that's not based in science like that? It's not based in biology. It's not based in anything like that. It's based in, this person has this gift. This person has this gift. This person has this gift. And that's it.
It's like in, as much as I hate to dredge up the wizarding world because I can't stand the author, some people are wizards and some aren't.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
It just is.
Explanations.
Yeah, there's no explanation to it. I mean, it's, DNA. It could be the stars, the position of the Earth. It could be, whether it was missionary doggy. I don't know.
Right. Exactly. If this were Star Trek and the Force existed within the Star Trek universe, nobody would have batted an eye talking about midichlorians.
Right.
We hear Dr. Crusher talking sometimes in various episodes with Troy when she's having psycho telepathic episodes, and they talk about, there was one episode with her mom, and it's like Dr. Crusher was saying, well, there's a certain neurotransmitter in telepathic beings, a chemical in their brain.
Yeah.
And, it's either not enough or she's using her powers too much and she's draining that. That makes sense in a Star Trek realm. That technobabble doesn't belong in Star Wars. Star Wars is about space battles and magic.
Right.
It's about space wizards with laser swords.
Space wizards and laser swords, yes. That's exactly what it is. And
dressed up as a Western in space.
Yeah. There's no room for science here.
No. You don't need it. You don't need it. Which, let's talk about one of my greatest complaints about the Last Jedi and the prequels here, since we're bringing up science again. If I'm going to apply science to Star Wars, when you go into hyperspace, your ship drops out of normal space. You are in a subdimension of which you can travel through faster. We discussed this in response to a TikTok video a month or two ago. And you cannot fly your ship through another ship if you are not in the same dimension as that ship. The Holdo maneuver is one of the stupidest things, visually impressive, but stupidest things they did in The Last Jedi. So much that J.J. Abrams came in and they're like, what was it? Charlie from Lost, who got more speaking lines than Rose in that movie, who had not been in the trilogy at all until that movie,
right?
was suddenly like, hey, why don't we just do a bunch of Holdo maneuvers? And then, of course, somebody's like, well, that's a 1 in a million shot. Yeah, because it wouldn't work.
Right?
And I'm not
And
one to say things can't happen in the Star Wars universe. It's magic.
of course, magic. You know, and again, nobody but bat an eye feels Star Trek, and they said, Q all of a sudden popped down and said, "Oh, we have a high midichlorian count. That's what makes you a Q." And it's like, well, what's a midichlorian? Oh, it's what it's what our bodies,
Right.
what our bodies produced in order to make us Q. So it's a whatever.
Even though we'll never know, I am sure that there, in the Star Trek universe, were it real, there would have to be some scientific explanation for how and why the Q are what they are.
Yeah.
We don't ever have to know that. Part of the fun is the mystery of not knowing. Because Q is one of my favorite characters, despite having some of the dumbest episodes. He's still one of my favorite characters.
Right.
The Robin Hood episode's got to go. Captain, I protest. I'm not a merry man.
Right. Exactly.
These things don't need to be explained, but we want to see the battles. And really, Star Wars in the sequel trilogy it should have been called Star Skirmishes.
Right.
Because there weren't really any, except for the big final battle, but the horses ruined the whole thing. The space horses. Space horses. They fought on the backs of Star Destroyers riding space horses.
Yep.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
And history of Star Wars has shown us you could have had, like we talked about before, you could have either turned Snoke into a greater character and develop him more, or reveal a different character. You know what I mean? It's like, look at Star Wars history, how many famous characters there are. The Palpatine Vader cycle was one cycle, but I mean, you had Bane, Nihilus, Plagueis, Maul, Exar Kun, Revan, Darth Malak. There were so many ways you could have gone to create a new and exciting character.
Right. And I mean,
or even back Palpatine,
or even just say, it was Darth Revan, and how did Darth Revan survive this long? The Force. How else do you think?
I was actually of the belief that Snoke should have been Plagueis.
That's what I was. Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because that was instantly what I thought.
Right, and creating life. He would have been the one most likely to protect himself from death.
Exactly. That's exactly what I thought. I thought instantly that Snoke was, big reveal, going to be Darth Plagueis. And he would tell the stories that, one point in time before I was Snoke, I was known as Plagueis. Something like that.
Snoke is just my cover name or what have you. And that Sidious didn't actually kill Plagueis, because Sidious couldn't kill Plagueis.
No, he just simply disfigured me. And that's why I look like this, because, he couldn't kill me. He could hurt me, and he did, but he couldn't kill me.
But his son, or his not his
said
son,
no, his
apprentice threw him down a chasm where he vaporized. Gone. He's gone.
Right.
Poof. Fine red mist.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So soon as I felt it in the Force when he left, and so I knew that was my time to take over, and blah 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 blah, and that's what he did.
George, that's a great question, and I actually have some thoughts about that. Why was Darth Vader? Why did he build his base, or Castle Bast, as it's called, on the planet of Mustafar? I believe that his trauma. This is just my personal theory. His trauma gives him access to the anger and hatred that he requires to be as powerful as he is. And two very traumatic, not just one, two very traumatic events happened on that planet. He believed his wife passed away, and he also fought nearly to the death his friend and father figure.
So
how many 20 some years? that they were together.
Right.
And that trauma is very powerful. And we see it all the time in real relationships where people cling to things in their lives that cause
Mhm.
trauma. We ask why do women stay with their abusers? There's very good reasons for that, that aren't just she's stupid, because that's the worst thing you could say about it. Sometimes trauma is all we know, and
Yeah.
that is what defines Vader, is his trauma.
Yeah. So, yeah, I totally agree. Because here's the thing, and I think that he knew it as well, and he knew that his connection to the dark side would be stronger by leaning in more into the environment that where he lost the love of his life, to where he lost, his brother, to where he lost all of that, where he knew he had kids, but he lost his kids. And where else, is he going to hold on to that hate? But where it happened. And so, yeah, it makes a lot of sense that he would keep his base on Mustafar, because that would be where it would be strongest.
You make a good point. If you're
Hmm.
referring to, when you say the fire mares there, George, are you referring to the space horses on the back of the Star Destroyer? Because I'm just going to say this about the movie Krull, who, by the way, I was today years old when I found out that the actor who played the prince in Krull,
Uh,
is also in Deep Space Nine, as
really, you're
now
about to
I'm
tell
going to
me
find
something
out.
I did not know.
It was Ken Marshall who played Michael Eddington in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. That is the same
Okay.
guy. That is same
Okay.
guy who was in Krull, Ken Marshall. I just found that out like a week ago, and I think that is fabulous. I do love the movie Krull, by the way. That's a fun movie. I like it.
That's
Got Liam
awesome.
Neeson in it, by the way. It's got Liam Neeson in it too, by the way.
I've never seen Kroll, but I played the video game,
Okay. Okay.
and I say I hate the game. Although the movie looked pretty cool, because I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I've never seen the whole movie. But
Yeah, I mean, it's a typical 80s
mhm.
fantasy movie, low budget for the most part. But again, Ken Marshall plays Colwyn. You've got Liam Neeson as Keegan, Robbie Coltrane, of Haggard fame, and also
Mhm.
Goldeneye. Was he in Goldeneye? The Russian guy. Yeah, he was the Russian in Goldeneye.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
one that
yeah, yeah.
the
Hmm.
one that Bond went to see with Minnie Driver as the Russian singer singing in the
Hmm.
background. But yeah, they're in that movie. It's a good movie. My favorite scene, I think, is the White Widow, the spider, and the cape. But we'll talk
Hmm.
about that movie sometime. It's a
Yeah.
good movie. It's typical 80s fantasy movie that it's going to have some cheese factor to it.
Oh, of
Time
course.
bandits,
Oh, of
stuff like
course.
that. Very similar. So, but yeah, back to Castle Bast and Mustafar. I just think that it's very
But
fitting for Vader to have his castle there, and sort of his place of solitude. And it also looks
mm,
cool,
well, yeah. Not
as
only that, yeah, and
especially when you're trying to inspire intimidation in people. Like, oh, I got to go to Vader's. He's going to talk to me. Where's Vader live? On that burning lava planet, and that big castle looks like a black spike of death,
like,
pouring lava out the front of it. And you're like,
it's like, God damn. I hope he has the AC on.
he's got it cooling inside. He's got his
I know he's cool inside. He's
environmental
fine,
suit.
but I know everybody else is just going like, oh,
But
I hope he's got the AC on.
to break it down in the end, I mean, what really the appeal of Vader, again, we want to be very clear about this. Vader is a space Nazi. He is not somebody to be, looked up to. I make
Right.
jokes all the time, but that's just being making jokes. I admire the character for the way it's written and the fact that he has risen to be one of the most celebrated villains in fantasy
Mm.
science fiction. But he's also brings hope with him. You talk about A New Hope, and that's the name of the first movie, which was later added. But um, you have a broken man who went through extreme trauma,
Yes.
somehow found a way to come back. Somebody cared enough to try and
Mm.
bring him back, and he was able to listen. Something that Trump supporters can't do. We try to explain to them that there's good in
So,
you. We feel it, but
there's
they
there,
reject it entirely.
there's good in there somewhere,
They reject it, though.
but
They reject it.
yeah.
I used to believe that all people were inherently good. Now I'm not so sure anymore. I have questions.
I used to believe that somewhere deep down in there, deep down in there, regardless of all of just the absolute shit people say, deep down in the core, there's a kernel of good in there.
It's a kernel. And we sometimes hope that will work, but
You
that
know,
will be
no, but much like all of the kernels, that it pooped right on out. So there's that.
And I will just apologize right now if my voice on the show sounded a little bit echoey, metallic-y. I need to remember to unplug my second headset when I log into my shows on the weekend because I get that background vibration, that kind of aluminum foil tin slash sound, which really got to work on that. But once I get my new studio set up with my microphone and all that stuff, I won't be sharing a setup with my work setup as well. Because I like to use all the monitors, so I have my full display here in front of me with all the information I need. But
So yes, you'll go
yeah,
from you'll go from Optimus Prime to
Optimus Prime
Optimus Prime to Swordfish.
right, right. So we'll get that worked out in the future. But the Skywalker saga should not, in my opinion, have brought back Palpatine. And if you're
No.
going to have Vader in it, I would not have been opposed to his fourth ghost talking to
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Yeah.
One
Fine.
of
Not
the
a
things
problem with that.
and I think it was in the Timothy Zahn books. It's been years since I read them, but there was a scene where Anakin's Force Ghost visits Leia after the fall of the Empire. And it's one of the few
Mhm.
conversations you ever get to see between him and her. Because she's sort of his forgotten child. She got all the accolades and all the benefits growing up, growing
Yeah.
up in a rich household, being groomed for public service, everything she could possibly need or want being given to her. And Luke
Exactly.
having nothing. But yet Luke becoming the hero that really she never got to be and having a relationship with a father that,
That
that she never
right.
knew.
Right. Exactly.
He had a relationship with one of their parents, and neither one of them um, had anything to do with Leia, which I'm still bothered by the fact that Padme should have lived on. She should have lived briefly, at least,
Yeah.
and lived on Alderaan,
I.
Bail Organa, and his family for a
Mhm.
few years, long enough for Leia to become 3 or 4, to have a couple of memories of her mother,
Yeah.
and pass away.
Yeah. Because then it would make sense that when Luke asked her about when Luke asked Leia about her mom and saying that, I remember her being sad, then okay, it would make sense that she would live to when Leia was about, 3, 4, 5. And just knowing that, yeah, she was very beautiful, but she was also very sad. And I don't know why she was sad.
Yes.
You
And
know,
I did like even in those novels, which were supposed to be the de facto sequels until they were canned and then retconned with the sequel trilogy. I liked the idea in that book better that Leia was attempting to learn to be a Jedi, but her political responsibilities simply did not allow her to dedicate the time needed.
Yeah.
So she had some force sensitivity and ability,
But
but
she
no
couldn't.
Mary Poppins through space crap.
Right. Like, no. 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 I mean, cool scene. Don't get me wrong. Really cool scene. You know, it visually looks great. And you could kind of get the feeling that, you know, yeah, she learned something, but nowhere enough to where you could just like, you know what? I'm cool. Let me just real quick
Yeah.
pop onto my ship.
Right. No, I just don't see that happening. I mean, I know we got a brief flashback of her and Luke training together, and she kind of overpowers Luke in a little lightsaber battle. I'm sorry. Leia's not marching down a hallway, killing death troopers or robotic death troopers the way Luke did.
No, no.
She's not doing it. She's not even
Said
close to
no,
his power
no,
and training level. Not even
no,
close.
nowhere even close. Nowhere even
And
close.
I'm going to direct you to George's comment in the Rules and Nerdquisition YouTube channel because you are going to love that.
Yeah, I read it. I read it. I read it. All right. Going to Planet Mustafa to talk to Vader is like going to a Zoom meeting with Thomas to talk about Birdemic. That's a fact. That's a fact. That's a fact.
I
That's
cannot
a
think
fact.
of a more horrifying prospect. Either one of them. I mean, wow.
Just
Yeah.
that's a fact. And why do you want to watch that movie, Thomas? Why? Why do you want to watch that shit movie?
After the trailer that I saw, I mean, it
Like
literally looks like someone took a photo and then cut out some bird pictures from another photo and taped them onto the photo of the people going like this.
so right, you know how when you were like, you know, first, second, third grade, and then you would see like the little things on TV where where they had a little flip book and you had the stick guy that you would draw and make him look like he was running. You know, yeah, that's what the birds look like. Just a whole flip book of just of just of just birds just.
Why we have decided for Thomas that once plot a-holes get started again, we will not be reviewing Birdemic. I think everybody. Oh, Thomas is the only one that's upset about that, and frankly, I love you, Thomas, but sorry, not sorry. To quote Ghost Hulk.
So I will say it like my mom. You'll be alright. You'll be alright. You'll be alright.
Yeah.
Not watching that.
No. No.
So
But
back to
yeah,
space.
that's
Back to talking about space Nazis.
back to space Nazis and stuff. I mean, it really does in the end come down to I think that the Vader Palpatine cycle was its own thing, and
Yeah, absolutely.
it should have ended with the deaths of both Vader and Palpatine.
Yeah,
Didn't need Palpatine did not need to come back. Snoke or somebody else needed to be their own villain in the sequel trilogy.
yeah,
Um, it put too much emphasis on Palpatine. He was already a great character, evil and has every right, and arguably I would say one of the best characters in the prequel trilogy because if you watch that movie, it doesn't look like anyone's having any fun. Except Palpatine, except Ian
yeah,
McDiarmid. He's the only one that's having fun in those movies. I mean, he is positively cackling with joy through the whole Revenge of the Sith.
yeah. Because everything is going exactly the way he wants it to. So
Exactly as I had foreseen. I mean, look,
yeah. So why wouldn't be having the greatest time ever?
the greatest time ever. Where every other actor, I mean, each character looks like the actor behind it is like, I just got to get through this. There's a paycheck at the end of this. There's a paycheck. I think a little
Yeah.
bit about having dinner last night with a couple members of the guild who were in town for GalaxyCon, and One of them got to meet Hayden Christensen. That was something I wanted to do. I was not able to afford it. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of dollars just to stand in
Mhm.
line for hours and hours and hours. And you can go watch DT Pros videos on TikTok
That's
about that
it.
experience.
Yes.
But yeah, I looked at the photos, and Hayden Christensen did not look like he was having a lot of fun. I I mean, he showed up dressed as Billy Bob Thornton. I didn't know that was a cosplay character that was an option, but hey, more power to you.
Hey, I guess that's what works. That's what works for him, I guess. I don't know. Hey.
I would still like to meet him, but I mean, as DT was pointing out, I think a lot of it had to do with they overbooked it. Not everybody was able to get in for the autograph session. DT had to pull out of line and not
Mhm.
get the autograph. He could only do the photo shoot. And you brought up Sam Witwer earlier. DT said that he met Sam Witwer and he is fabulous. That he absolutely enjoys his
Yeah.
fans. He is very knowledgeable in Star Wars lore. In fact,
Yeah. Because there's.
autographed three different things for DT
Oh, that's awesome.
and was talking about the lore behind each of the pictures in this book of lightsabers. He was signing all the ones that of characters he had voiced or played, and they were going through the book. And the original. This is the best story. I should really let DT tell it, but I mean, he told me last night. The original concept art of Vader, and he's fighting that Jedi character, which was the original design for Starkiller before he was renamed
Hmm.
Skywalker.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the first picture in this book that DT has, and when he opens the book and sees
Oh,
it,
nice.
he's like that's Starkiller. Sam Witwer's like that's Starkiller right there. Who we know, Sam Witwer played and did the motion capture for the character of Starkiller as he was recreated in the video games The Force Unleashed and The Force Unleashed 2 as Vader's secret or apprentice that was being groomed to help him depose the
Yeah.
Emperor and take over for himself.
Yeah. I think it's a battle between Sam Witwer and Freddie Prinze Jr. And Dave Filoni on who's the biggest Star Wars geek. Because
Yeah.
the knowledge that they have is just amazing.
Yes, and I have said this before. I just want to throw this out there to Mr. Ahmed Best. I love that you got to play the Jedi who got Grogu out of the temple during Order 66. I freaking love that. I
Yeah,
know you were universally panned for the character of Jar Jar. I think that has more to do with the creation of the character than it did with your performance. But that sequence from The Mandalorian, that flashback was
that was
excellent.
absolutely perfect.
That was excellent. I'm
And
glad you got to do that. I'm so
so
glad you
I'm
got to do that.
glad, I'm glad you got to redeem yourself because I know it was not fun. The backlash that you got from Jar Jar Binks, and again, like you said, it was not your fault. You know,
You
you
did much
you
you did much better than Jake Lloyd.
yes, yes, absolutely, and again, not your fault. That was the way the character was written, and you played it how it was written. Who knew he was going to be so universally hated? They knew there was always going to be, some there was going to be some hatred because with all Star Wars characters, there's ones that you love, there's ones that you hate, and there's one that you love to hate.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And just kind of like Rose, who I just think is no offense to the actress who played her in the sequel trilogy. I just don't think she was a very well written character. There was too much comedy that didn't work in the sequel trilogy. It wasn't
Yeah,
natural like the comedy that Han Solo would do. He did things that were genuinely frustrating for that character, and it was funny. It wasn't these third grade fart jokes every few minutes.
right?
And just bad comedy altogether. And I'm sorry, you still ruined the character of Finn. Um, he could have been fantastic. his character himself was so intriguing, being that stormtrooper that stepped away, and
Yeah.
they took him and just made him comic relief, and they kept whittling down his lines. He didn't even need to be in the second two movies, really. He had almost no.
Right. And then what was it with in Rise of Skywalker when just some random woman in engineering or random woman that was engineer just all of a sudden just had some kind of stalker crush on him, and it was like
Yeah, right.
And it just felt so forced, like it just like really just shoehorned. It's like, oh no, this is Finn's love interest, and Poe's love interest is flying this ship. Really?
These things make no sense to me, and yeah, everybody can just do whatever they want, and I still don't even know what they were trying to do in the Battle of Crate. They were flying these ships with no guns, straight at the biggest gun that the first one had. And they had those new mammoth walkers, whatever they were called, the gorilla walkers or whatever. Like,
yeah, and it's just I don't understand.
Flying straight at it and getting wasted. You're just getting wiped out. Were all of you just trying to get one of you to fly down the gut of it? You don't even have any guns. What's happening here?
It's like I don't. Said this is it's confusing. It's confusing.
It's so confusing, and I get, yes, life imitates art imitates life, whatever. And they were trying to give this big exposition on the evils of capitalism with the whole Canto Bite scene and the casino and stuff like that, and really misplaced message. I understand movies are going to make those messages, but Disney, while you're buying up every major property in the known universe, and you're trying to lecture your moviegoers about the evils of capitalism.
It's a little on the irony side.
A little bit of do as I say and not as I do.
A little bit, just a tiny smidge. Just a tiny bit.
We still got, and this is again from my research, watching multiple videos this week breaking down the sequel trilogy and stuff like that, is that at least with some of the other franchises like the MCU, at least the Infinity Saga, we got a satisfying end.
Yeah,
this end wasn't satisfying at all. It just wasn't.
No,
I agree. Cosmonaut Rey should have died. Well, first of all, Leia should have died in a result of Ren's actions.
Yeah.
Thus making him irredeemable, though Rey redeems him by sacrificing her life at the end of Rise of Skywalker and dies. And he is the Rise of Skywalker. And it's he who goes into Tatooine, into self-exile, and sees the ghosts of his mother and his uncle.
Right.
He who is a Skywalker.
Yes. And sees, Vader, and he sees, Luke, and he sees you.
He has to live with the horrible things he's done. Don't give him an out by letting him die nobly.
So, no, he
did horrible things. He did horrible things.
Yeah, and let him, let him see the Force ghosts there, and letting him know that, say, yeah, you messed up, man. You messed up. Then
you could have had a real redemption arc, and you have a fantastic actor and Adam Driver anyway.
Yeah,
he should have smashed that helmet and never put it back together.
And just had it right there, just right there. But again, it was, to me, I guess it was just the change in directors with Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams, and because the story that Ryan was telling was one thing, and the story that JJ was telling was something different. Maybe each one of their visions would have worked if they were, through all three. Ryan Johnson's vision could have worked if he directed, Force Awakens and Rise of Skywalker.
Well, and the last thing I'm going to point out that the Cosmonaut brought up that I think is the most relevant point here is that the prequels were planned.
Yes.
The original trilogy was planned.
Yes.
This was not. The sequels were not. They were haphazard, thrown together. Let's just off the cuff, play it by ear.
It was just it was a way to sell toys. I mean, let's be honest, it was a way to sell toys. That's how they've always been, since the 70s, and the original the trilogy. It was there to sell toys. The prequel, set to sell toys. So the sequel series, it's geared to sell toys. So they less focus on the story and just on, what looks cool. We have these two characters here. Let's make them into a buddy cop type of film, and let's say first for Beverly Hills Cop, but in space, and you have Poe and Finn, so it's again, it's just a money grab. That's what these sequels were. It's just a money grab.
And back to the whole Vader thing, just to kind of to put the bow on that and finish it up, just to show you what a long-term, well-developed, planned-out, plotted character can become over the course of 6 movies and some television shows now that we've gotten to see him in. There were no memorable villains in the sequel trilogy. Hux was almost intimidating in the first movie, but absolutely a joke by the second, third one. This bumbling idiot who nobody would put in charge of a multi-galactic empire, or a galactic-wide empire or military force. He was completely incompetent, too emotional. Kylo Ren was a big baby. Temper tantrums. Was it Kylo Ren trying to chase down the Millennium Falcon and they got away? Kylo Ren would have destroyed the nearest console in a fit of temper tantrum rage, where Vader just walked out of the room, and you're like, oh, thank God.
He's like, oh, thank God. Oh, he didn't kill me. Oh, thank God, he didn't kill me. Whereas, but yeah,
that's the appeal of Vader, is just that he's a very, very detailed character, very nuanced character, and he's frightening, as he should be frightening.
Yeah, and it's that control. It's just that simple control, is that he could, and they know because they've probably seen him do it, he could, kill a bunch of people in a hallway, or just force choke one person out, or he could, completely destroy this whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's all just simply because of, it used to be sort of because of his mood, but simply because that he had such Jedi training, he's able to kind of control it.
Right.
So yeah, he could be that super, just heated, angry, but if he knows that the only way he could really get, what he wants and satisfaction is to wait for a second, yeah, he's going to wait.
Just to answer some questions in our chat there, a couple of comments I wanted to address. You are correct to a point, Jay Thomas, about Vader. Vader actually means father in Dutch. Father in German is Vater, Vater. But yes, very close. That's where they did take it from. It was meant to be Dark Father. That's sort of where
Yes.
Darth just means Lord, but Dark Father, yes, that was the thing there. I have seen the deleted scenes in the prequels of the tragic romance between Padme and Anakin. Some that could have been put back into the movie and better developed. It did add to the
Mm.
story, I think. It didn't ruin them any,
All
especially
right.
when he's meeting like her family and stuff when they're staying with them
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
on Naboo. That was some interesting backstory there, but that got left on the cutting room floor, as George mentioned, in the other side, along with Jar Jar Binks and Rose and, and some other characters there. But yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
we don't see too many well-developed villains anymore, and I think Vader's definitely one of the ones that's going to go down in history as some of the best. Can you think of any villains that come to mind that you think are
That kind of like on the
maybe one same level?
same kind of level as Vader. Ooh.
Yeah, who do you think?
Oh gosh.
I'm going to see what the internet says too while we're doing this.
Khan, maybe. Um, Maybe the Master from Doctor Who.
Hey, I don't know that one, so wouldn't be able to really comment
That's
on that.
that's the
AFI
only one.
lists Hannibal Lecter as their number
Yeah.
one.
Hannibal Lecter.
Uh,
Yeah.
Norman Bates is number two, and Darth Vader is number three. Wicked Witch of the West is in that list. Nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, that I could believe.
Yeah, I could believe that. Oh, Nurse
Um,
Ratched was a bitch.
yeah, yeah. Michael Corleone, the alien is on that list. Um,
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if HAL 9000 would be considered a villain, in my opinion. A not, not.
Maybe. I guess depending on the situation, but Hal wasn't
Did
really
he do it?
like a
Did he do
villain.
it? Did he do it for nefarious purposes? No, he did it because he was protecting. He thought he was protecting
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. I mean, I guess situational villain, I guess, would apply with Hal, but
Count Dracula's number 33.
wow.
Freddy Krueger number 40. I guess it's all speculative. I mean.
Yeah.
But Khan, I agree with
Um
you. And I know Thomas will argue with me until I die about this one. I'm sorry. Superman 2's Zod is better than Michael Shannon's. I'm sorry. Disco outfit aside.
I'm sorry.
And that
I'm sorry. I'm still stuck with my favorite Zod. It's on Krypton. Is Colin Salmon
yeah.
as my
Sure.
favorite Zod.
I have to watch that to see it. But movie was Chuckles, thank you. Hans Gruber. Absolutely.
Oh, Hans Gruber. Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And for everyone watching, I'll die on this hill too. Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Get over it.
Die Hard is one of the best Christmas movies ever made,
I've already watched it this season and I will watch it again.
and it is sparked a conspiracy theory of Family Matters, in which anybody that doesn't know, it is hilarious. This whole conspiracy theory about with the connection with Die Hard and Family Matters. So, in case anybody doesn't know, let me tell you real quick. Let's see if I could try to explain real quick. Okay, so in Die Hard, there's the cop in Die Hard that's played by Reginald Vell Johnson.
Right.
Okay, so the theory is it goes like this. He's there in that movie because throughout the course of his career, he accidentally killed a kid. That kid being Stephen Urkel. So, because of that, it broke him, mentally, because he accidentally killed this innocent kid. So, because it broke him,
gun, it was dark.
right, and so he was committed into a mental facility. through that mental facility, in his head, he dreamed up this whole scenario where he was a Chicago cop. His wife was an elevator operator that worked in, worked in Perfect Strangers show. And of course, that's his whole family and the neighbor, Steve Urkel, in which Steve was the same kid that he killed, in which everybody that was his family were other patients in the mental facility with him. So,
wow,
that's the conspiracy theory behind what connects those shows together.
I'm not really surprised. I mean, with all these cinematic universes being created out there and other ties being made. I mean, some people don't know that the Hughes verse is a thing. John Hughes movies, like the high school that Ferris Bueller goes to, that he skips school, is the same high school that the kids in the Breakfast Club go to.
Yeah,
it's the same high school, just different years apart. I imagine the Breakfast Club Ferris is probably a middle schooler, just a freshman. He's not a senior yet,
Right.
So who knows? But just funny little connections that are out there in the world. American Psycho has a spin-off movie in which I can't remember the character's name, but played by Christian Bale. His brother is in a movie. I need to see that now. Let's see here.
But Chuckles, that's the conspiracy theory with connecting those two shows. So
yeah, they do a lot of these weird things. But
again, I totally agree. It is a stretch, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible. It definitely is a stretch.
okay, Patrick Bateman, the serial killer from the movie American Psycho. It is attached to the movie The Rules of Attraction, in which James Vanderbeek played the younger brother of Patrick Bateman, Mario Bateman.
Aha. Okay. All right.
Whatever. They do that a lot. They do a lot of that fun stuff, And other fun facts are things like Red Sonja was originally supposed to be a third Conan movie, but they couldn't afford the rights to the Conan universe, so they
so it just so they had to make a generic character that was like Conan but not Conan, so yeah. And the J-Tom, there are videos on YouTube and TikTok that go deeper into the whole conspiracy theory. And then there's other ones that are behind it where, it's Carl Winslow and he got transferred to Chicago and he met his wife and the whole nine. And so there's theories behind that where he just simply he transferred into another department and he moved to Chicago. It's the connection between those two and that. There's other theories around, but that was the biggest and main one was he killed a kid named Steve Urkel and it broke him, and all the family matters is just him trying to deal with the grief of killing Steve Urkel.
Right. Yeah, I think I might have heard that on a side note, but yeah, we might have to do an episode one day of strange movie universe connections, because there are a lot out there. Some are just envisioned by fans and made up. Other ones are actually connected, like the whole Patrick and Mario Bateman thing. There are real connections where movies are connected and exist in the same universes. Next week, we'll be back with actually season 2 of TOS, the episode 2, Who Mourns for Adonis, or we won't. If we're not, who knows? With this, we were going to do that this week, and we changed our mind like 2 days ago. So
yeah, just know that
we'll get there.
That's what's pending.
It's on deck.
It's pending. It's pending. So.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about Thrawn tonight, George.
Talked some about Thrawn, yeah.
Not a whole lot, but that was a little while ago. We brought him up. Definitely a better plot choice would have been him than the First Order, or at least leading into the First Order.
Yeah.
He should have been responsible for it. And maybe that's where they're going with Ahsoka. We'll see in season 2. I don't know yet, but he's
definitely
back in the normal galaxy, and he's going to be a real threat for the Rising Republic.
So yeah, we're gonna see more Thrawn. We're gonna see more Thrawn. Thrawn is not gone.
Mandalorian and Grogu, the new movie coming out. Thrawn is in that.
So yeah.
I'm assuming Ahsoka and some other characters in the Disney shows will make appearances. I'm kind of expecting a Star Wars version of Avengers. We're gonna get Mando, Grogu, Boba Fett, Ahsoka.
Of course.
We're gonna get all of them in there and doing some fun stuff, and we'll just have to see how that turns out. But that's on deck for next week. Yeah. Darth Vader's still the best. I still love him. I still annoy people by talking about him way too much. So,
but I will say, yeah, definitely, Darth Vader is definitely one of the best written, characters. Just
he agrees. Even he
almost all time, yeah. One of the best written characters, character arcs, just in general,
And just to stay on point for my typical weekly shout out, let's remember that James Earl Jones had passed away September 9th of this year. Rest in power, sir. Thank you. And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
And he's recorded thousands of lines of dialogue and words that Disney has archived for future uses. So that's cool too.
So yeah. So
Not
yeah,
heard the last of him.
So yeah, we'll definitely hear more in every Star Wars games that comes out. We're gonna hear a lot more from James Earl Jones.
We'll hear a lot more.
Yeah.
You still got Scott Lawrence, Disney. You still got Scott Lawrence. He's fantastic.
Yeah, he's really good.
I have nothing else to say. You all know my feelings about Vader, and I've said everything I need to say about the prequels. Normally, I would say live long and prosper, but today I will simply say, may the Force be with you, and leave it to you, as always, to send us home.
Well, again, I totally agree. Said everything I need to say. This has been the Rules of Nerdquisition, our love/hate/love letter to Vader, to the sequel series, to the Empire, the First Order. May the Force be with you. And normally I would send off with my normal Star Trek, but we're not talking about Star Trek. We're talking Star Wars. So, again,
do not ride space horses into battle on the back of starships in space.
Don't do that.
That's all. That's my advice.
Don't do that. Don't do that. And especially don't get into pod races with scummy back people.
And never go in against a Sicilian when death is on the line.
Exactly. Don't do that. Definitely don't do that. Don't do that. So, yeah, that's all we got.
See you later tonight. Villains View later tonight, 8:30, 9 p.m. for you guys.
Villains View, 9 p.m. At 6 o'clock we have Jeff Kennedy. The Kennedy Effect is at 6, going from 6 to 9, giggity. Then from 9 to 11, we've got the Villains View. Then after 11, we've got Conversations with T. Nathan. So, you get an hour break. So you grab a snack, use the bathroom, do what you need to do, and join us back here.
I'm hungry. I need a snack.
Me too. So, and we're going to end it on that. All right, everybody. Take care. We'll see you in an hour.